Hello, friends and listeners. You have a brand new episode of Watch Skip Plus. We want to be your go-to source for insightful and pop-culture movie reviews. My name is Jose, also known as Cupcake, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mike, the WillDaBeast. If you have not seen the drama, you are right now in the spoilered movie discussion, meaning we are going to have spoilers. We're going to break down the movie. We really can't say much about this film, the drama, without actually ruining it. We are about to spoil the shizzazz out of the drama, directed by Kristoffer Borgli, starring Robert Pattinson, Zendaya, Alana Haim, and Mamadou Athé. Now, before we start, I mentioned Force Majeure, directed by Ruben Östlund, in our first review. So before we dive into this movie, in that film, what happens is a family, it's a man, his wife, two kids, they're vacationing in this like Swiss ski chalet or something, and this enormous avalanche is barreling towards the hotel. They're having breakfast like on the patio or whatever. And when it's coming, basically what happens is the wife and the kids are terrified. They turn around. Father's not there. He just took off and ran. Now, what ends up happening is that the avalanche, it looked scary, but it basically peters out and doesn't do anything. And the rest of the film is the family trying to understand why the father basically ran and didn't even try to protect them or whatever. And so this film, which starts out as a rom-com, right? So we get this like meet cute kind of thing where we're having flashbacks. We're seeing how this couple is getting together. It's very cute how they meet. And then in a series of like kind of like quick cuts, almost Michael Bay-ish if you think about like a romance film. They're ready to have their wedding. It's the week before. Pattinson's writing his speech, and he's talking about how they met, what's a good story, and then she's talking with her girlfriends and talking about stuff. Who's going to be the DJ? And he's my first love, and this and that or whatever. And then we get to the wine tasting session where the four of them are there. And I'm not going to say that the film touches on things like privilege or whatever, but in a way it also talks about how, we just kind of like take certain things for granted, right? That the people we date or the people that we are with are aligned in terms of our values. And the reason why I say that is because they're ostensibly testing like desserts and the wine and the food. And then they're like, we're not really sure about the wine. And it's just because they want more fucking wine, right?
Yeah. And then I love the little line of the waitress going, this isn't a bar.
This isn't a fucking bar or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So then they play this game. What is the worst thing that you've done? And so Mamadou Athé goes first, and he says something along the lines of like, well, he was on a date with this girl and she wasn't exactly like super great. They weren't really hitting it off. Some dog comes shooting out of nowhere and he puts her in front of the dog as sort of like a shield so that the dog doesn't attack him.
Yeah, would
right?
bite hit her instead of him. Yeah. That was funny.
Exactly. That was funny. A little. And then Alana Haim tells her story, and her story is essentially that when she was young, like a young kid, now she says that he's like special or something. I forget what word she used.
It reminded me of Sling Blade, the way she was explaining it.
Yeah, he was a little slow. And that's what she said. He was a little slow. And the slow neighbor kid takes her far out into like the woods to see this place. And it's like a ramshackled RV. They go inside. It's really gross and disgusting. It stinks. And she doesn't really know what to do. She gets scared. So she locks the kid in a closet, runs away. And then as she tells the rest of the story, well, I didn't really say anything. Even the father came over. Have you seen my kid? And she was like, I don't know. And then the next day in the morning, there's a full search for him. Yeah. And then they find him, right? And so, of course, they're kind of laughing it off, but then they're also kind of like, what would you have done if they hadn't found him? And she's like, oh, I definitely would have spoken up. Would you? Would you have spoken up? Because at that point, it would have been terrible. So then Rob
And
Pattinson,
they do these great cut shots of like, you can see Zendaya's reaction. And I didn't realize it until I'm thinking about it more. It's almost like it opened up an ability for her to say something that she has never told anybody in her whole life. And you could see her, but like, that's pretty awful. If she said that, well, maybe I could say this. And then it gets to Robert Pattinson.
Yeah. Well, first of all, they're 5 sheets to the wind because they're drinking like all of this wine, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. They're
fast.
Drunk.
Yeah.
So their inhibitions are down. They're all being very candid. They're all saying these things. And you're right. Like, it kind of gives a license like, okay, maybe I can bare my soul and I'll be okay. So Pattinson goes and he says that he cyberbullied a kid, that he was on social media cyberbullying them, and then the family ended up having to move away. And of course, he shrugs it off as like, well, it was just coincidental, but you know, it's pretty clear that the cyberbullying and everything that came with it, although he doesn't talk as much as the other people do. And then when we get to Zendaya, she, you know, is encouraged to talk and says all these, you know, is kind of like, I don't know. And what she essentially says is that when she was a youngster in high school, she almost committed a school shooting.
Well, she said it, I planned a school shooting. Right. And then they're like laughing and they're like, are you serious? And she's like, yeah, I'm serious. And then she goes on to say that, so in the beginning, we learned that she's deaf in one ear. She goes on to say that she lost her hearing because she was testing out dad's rifle and shooting it in the woods. She even brought it to school. And then she kind of like changed her mind, right? After she blew her ear off, she decided to throw it away after she blew her ear again.
Well, I mean, she was still bleeding, but she still took it to school, right?
It's true.
But then all of these things, we learned later that all of these things sort of happened. Like she had recorded a final message, but that recording couldn't even go through. You know, she basically became isolated. She was bullied. Like the white girls were sort of talking about her body odor and being mean to her and bullying her. And so when she tells this story, even though Pattinson's like, but you didn't do it, you didn't hurt anybody, she's like, no. Alana Haim's character goes insane because she's like, my cousin was in a school shooting and she's now in a wheelchair because of it, right? Yeah. And so then there's a lot of like, wait, hold on, cool your jets. She didn't do anything. It was just like an intention. And Alana Haim's character's had it. She's like, we're fucking out of here. I'm not even going to go to the wedding. And so then it just sets up this whole thing of like, you can't unring the bell.
Yep.
Pattinson is like, what am I going to do? Is she really a psychopath?
And the whole time I'm like, dude, she had plans, but she didn't fucking do it. In fact, it goes even more into details where she explains that she joined like an anti-gun group and like really went gung-ho the opposite end. And that's how she found her like way to move past it. She found a group that was really kind of a liberal activist group that she found her way in.
But not even that. And so I was thinking about this after the film. So she doesn't go through with it, right? She talks about being bullied. She talks about being isolated. But the one thing she doesn't say is that there's a very key scene where she's met with the gun control advocates, the kids, and they're like, well, who's going to be the spokesperson for us? And the one kid goes, I think she should, her character. And he's like, she's smart. She knows how to talk and she's really pretty. And it's like she's being seen for the first time, right? And it's just so interesting that she never says that to Pattinson. She never says, I was feeling dark, I was feeling hopeless, and then somebody saw me, somebody recognized me, and I found my group, just like she found like this group of friends or whatever. And so I think we talked about this in the spoiler free. This is what kids are growing up with, the active shooter drills, seeing this stuff on Facebook and knowing people that have been affected by like shootings.
And this was also based in 2010-ish. She was a kid at that point, which was really big for the Chicago drill scene, which was very violent. Young 15-year-olds posing with big guns like that, which you saw her doing, was very much she was being fed in the mainstream with like Chief Keef and a lot of that drill scene. She was showing that. She was trying to feel empowered in a world that made her feel like she didn't have a place. And they do show that her mother is white, her father is black, her father's active military. She felt
not kind of a way to fit in. She didn't feel black enough or white enough. Of course, this is all, that's what's so great about this is all inferred through little bits of like flashback scenes that really shows who she is. And you know, by the end, out of all three of them, what she intended to do, while sounds so awful, she's the best person of the three of them. The other three have a lot of other fucking issues compared to her.
That was the other crazy thing about the film, was that, you know, it does bring to light this sort of, you know, well, that person who you support is actually a convicted criminal. Oh, it's okay. I'm going to look that over because he seems to be doing well in this sort of arena. And so it becomes this gray area where it's like, is your bad worse than my bad? Yeah. I think I'm more justified than you are. So meanwhile, Alana Haim's character, you know, who is she to cast stones at Zendaya? She could have left a fucking kid to die.
He could have died. She got lucky.
Yeah,
that he
she
didn't
got
die.
incredibly lucky. Meanwhile, Zendaya has these thoughts in her head, but she doesn't go through with it, right? And it made me...
So this is probably a good time to talk about the controversy that you were going to hint at. You know.
So the controversy was that I think it's called March for Our Lives, which is the gun control, anti-gun violence not-for-profit. They came out and they basically said that A24 marketed this completely incorrectly, that they did not support would-be viewers in letting them know that this was going to deal with something strong like gun violence. And they even took the studio to task, saying that they should have, I don't know, included resources, or maybe they should have had like a town meeting to discuss these kinds of things and these issues before the film came out. And so I'm reading this Hollywood Reporter article where it says spoilers about the film, and it's kind of like, what? Come on, man. Like that's the whole point of the film, is you are to be caught off guard.
Reddit's blowing up now because of, this is a very Norwegian look at gun violence, and Black women are not at all linked to any gun violence at all in America. So it's kind of a mini thing there.
It's funny that you mention that, because there is a wrongly reported statistic in this. They talk about the fact that like there are female school shooters, and I don't think that there are actually, but
if there are, it's very, 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 very rare in comparison to white men.
Yeah.
So again, I think people are getting too caught up in, once they found, those that haven't seen the film and found out what it's about before they saw the film, it's the intention. She was bullied to the point that she made a plan, because that's what living in America makes you think that you have to do, is grab a gun and fuck shit up. Fuck around and find out. I mean, we're living it right now, right? So that's the reality of what this movie really is about, is the American culture that pushes young people to the point that they have to plan this. They have to think about it. And then they even mention, like, how many of you have thought about this? And it shows people randomly walking around in New York. And you could tell that these people think about this all the time. People think about killing themselves or others all the time. And in America, the difference in other countries is that it's really fucking easy to get a gun still today.
But in those countries, they don't see the level of violence that we see in America, not even close. So it's like, where's the disconnect? But, you know, it's interesting that you also mentioned that this took place like, well, first of all, there's dial-up internet. And so it's staged in a particular time period where I think the social media isn't as accessible, but the internet is there. Because there's that hilarious, well, it's darkly comedic scene where she's trying to record her final message, and she's like, so and so people are gonna die, and then it's like, boom, please update, and then it's like waiting, and you know it's dialing up or whatever, and then she tries it again, and she gets like the blue screen of death. There's something going on with the software. I was laughing my ass off, but I know it's supposed to be kind of horrifying. But anyway, so yeah, this I don't know. I'm kind of mad at March for Their Lives for doing this. And in some ways, they're doing it to call attention to their cause as well, which just reinforces the message of the film. It's like whoever's the loudest that can convince other people. When I was thinking about Dream Scenario and talking about like that cancel culture stuff, this is kind of like what we do with each other is we find out these things, and sometimes even if they tell you the truth, you still have already made up your own mind. It's your perception. It's what you're thinking about it. So the example of that in this film is before their wedding, they hire a girl to be the DJ. And as they're walking home, as they're walking home, they're like, I think I see so-and-so, our DJ, smoking crack. And they're like, no. And then, So she walks back to look at them, and sure enough, there's a girl that looks like their friend who's going to be the DJ smoking, from a glass pipe with like a foil or whatever. But later in the film, they confront her and she's like, that wasn't me. And they're like, get the fuck out, because they've already made up their mind, right? Even if she denied it. So
and it was mainly Zendaya's character who attacked her because she was being attacked. There's so much psychological gold mines in this.
Yeah,
that are so wonderfully.
The way that we act out when things are done to us.
Yes. But the way that he spirals, and we haven't even gotten into his spiral and what behavior that leads him to, because again, in his mind, like, he's not from America. He's very much got his British accent on, and he's came over here and fell in love with this girl because he thought she was this empathetic, sweet, like didn't have a violent bone in her body. So to find this out to him, who is from a country that's very difficult to have guns, and he's never even touched one, that I think was what was interesting to see how that spiraled him out of control. And then hearing
he gets that dream where everybody's killed at the wedding.
Oh my gosh. And he keeps seeing him with her, like, as the younger version holding the gun.
Oh my God. I loved that
stuff. It's almost like a dream scenario where you saw Nick Cage's character almost like Freddy Krueger with the red and green, and it looked like he was like haunting their dreams like Freddy.
And then he comes through his daughter's bedroom.
Yeah, he is this. I'm telling you, I know their controversy aside, this director really has an interesting eye, a really interesting look into the human experience that I think goes beyond American, Norwegian, European, that just really just shows us all as human beings and what we think about and see in the darkest crevice of our brains. And this is one of those films that really does hit it. And there's even a part where, of course, Haim's character is married to the black man, and she just keeps saying these really derogatory things to him without even realizing it.
Yes.
And like, I'm raised around him, and he knows what it's like to be around guns. He's like, I've never touched a gun.
Right, exactly. Guns. And she's like supposing that because he's black, he's been around guns or whatever. And then later she's like, I'm not talking to you or whatever. Like, I was like, what? Yeah, there's so many layers about like society and how we interact with each other and what we show and what we don't show.
And these assumptions,
it's incredible.
The way we assume things about people by looking at them. And the reality is the fact that her like intention and her plan was worse than the actions of these other people who did awful things.
Right.
And she
did all in her head.
She literally did nothing. And that's what I kept saying the entire time, especially when all hell breaks loose. I'm like, she did nothing.
Yeah.
I guess we better, before we wrap things up, we better get into what happens with the Batman himself.
Yeah. Well, actually, so with Pattinson, he's starting to have all these things, and it's like, she comes up, she's making a sandwich. She comes up into the bedroom holding a knife, and he's all scared or whatever. And she's like pretending to like stab him, and he's like, but he's really kind of like freaked out about it. But he just goes on a complete spiral. And at one point he's talking to this like goth girl. He works at a museum as a curator, and he's like, let's just say there's this scenario or whatever, and she is not giving him the answers. This is where, again, it's all about perceptions. Like, you've made up your own mind, you ask other people, but they don't give you the answer you want, so you just go insane. So she doesn't give him the answer he wants, and then he's like breaking down crying, and then he kisses this woman and almost like has sex with her.
He sexually assaults her. I mean, openly.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, listen. But I mean, listen. She bends over and is not wearing underwear and pulls up her skirt, getting ready or whatever. And so, he's thinking. They even talk about the fact that, like, should we delay this? And to talk about stressful and crazy, they meet with this photographer and they're trying to do like these pretend shots to get ready for the day. And it's just so stressful to watch because none of them are smiling. They're all stuck in their thoughts. Oh my God, that scene, I felt so sick during that scene.
Yeah. The cringe is high in this. If you've seen the comedy, for example, I talk about that as far as like dark cringe comedy starring, Tim from Tim and Eric. That kind of stuff is what you get here. A lot
or
of
even Triangle of Sadness.
A lot of that Austin stuff from The Square to Triangle of Sadness to Force Majeure, it's all there. All that kind of really awkward cringe. You kind of want to just not be watching this or thinking what these people are doing to each other.
Do you want to talk about the wedding scene?
It all comes together at this super chaotic wedding scene where, of course, the girl who he bends over that he works with brings her a boyfriend or fiance or whatever, and shit's gonna hit the fan there. And the whole time, like, she's so on edge, Zendaya is, because she thinks this entire time that everybody knows that she planned a school shooting. And then her dad gets up there and discusses how she became, so anti-gun and like took one of his guns and threw him away. And then, of course, Haim's character's got to start guffawing as loud as possible. And I was just like, oh my God, you're kidding me. So the just ratcheting of this tension with this comedy just keeps going boom, boom, boom. And then all of a sudden she brings in this girl because she hears her talking about a school shooting. That's because the whole scenario was that Pattinson's character was telling her about, well, what if they planned a school shooting? We're going to be a school shooter. And of course, to her, she explained, well, yeah, if it was a man, I would be scared for my life because he would probably, kill me. And that sends him off.
But then she's like, have you seen Blake? He could totally murder me or whatever. But before that, we should also mention that Alana Haim says, I'm not going to go to the wedding unless my cousin, who's in the wheelchair, consents to it. Oh, and Pattinson meets her on the street, and he is
cringe.
Oh my God! And he's like stopping her from like moving on in her wheelchair. Oh my God! It was so
and then
crazy.
When she finally realizes, that she knows her cousin or whatever, and then goes, "What's your name?" and he says it, you see her roll her eyes. Excuse me.
She's like, I gotta go.
Oh
right.
God!
She's like, God damn it!
Again, you're just sitting here. What are the people saying about each other? Yeah. And then you find out that, of course, it had nothing to do with. Nobody knew. Nobody had said anything about her plan or intention to be a
So Zendaya was in the bathroom and she thought she overheard Pattinson's sexually harassed worker whispering.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, I heard you talking. Did you say something about a school shooting? She's like, no. So then
it all came back around, and then she contrives
this situation where she brings her in to have this personal conversation. And Zendaya is thinking that, she's going to say, I didn't say anything or, Alana Haim didn't tell me anything, but she's like, he kissed me first. And she's like, what?
And then she's like, are you, the way that her face went, I was like, bravo, Zendaya. And I cheered. I was like, I loved that scene to me. It was just like, then she looks at him and she's like, are you fucking kidding me? At that point, I think that didn't even matter to her because she's just like so concerned that everyone thinks she's a fucking school shooter.
Right.
That she was just like, it didn't even matter to her in that moment. And then, of course, the brilliant editing, which we can't talk about enough, how well it just snap crackles. It brings back little bits when we need it to. It brings different points of views when it has to. And it's all driven by this great soundtrack. That score just pops. It knows when to tinker with your emotion with the ting, 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 and then to go full on. And by this whole wedding scene, like I felt like my tension and my traps were just, like,
I wanted to die. I felt sick. And so, they've confronted this woman and the reception is basically stalled because they're not there. They come back to the table and they're like, okay, Zendaya, you get to talk. And she was like, no. So then Pattinson talks and he just fucks that shit up. He's like, I know you didn't kill anybody, and just saying all these things. And then he lets slip about the coworker, and then the boyfriend comes up. And of course, we don't see it. We see it after the fact, but
I know, he says, I basically sexually assaulted her. And then you see him zooms in the boyfriend's face and you're like, oh, he's going to fuck him up.
And then we cut to him walking into the apartment and he's all bloodied and crazed, which is kind of like a visual metaphor. Like when you can't unring the bell, like the blood is on your shirt already. You can't wash it out without looking at the shirt and thinking about it later, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that they had sort of discussed was after the reception, they would go to this diner, kind of like this cool idea where they hang out or whatever. And he goes there and then she ends up there too. And this whole time, because when they first met, he's talking to her in the deaf ear and she's sort of like, why don't you start over? And it's so cute. He literally walks over to the table, sits down, and then he starts over like meeting her. And they try to do that again. And he's like, this isn't working. And I just knew at the end of that, in the diner, she was going to sit down and be like, hi, what's your name? I've seen you around here. And they make an effort to start over again, basically. By the way, I talked about the director trademarks. Dream Scenario has not only a diner scene, but also has a scene where kids are in a gym and they're being counseled or talked to about certain things or whatever. Although I will tell you, the gym scene in Dream Scenario was a lot more harrowing than the the gym scene in this one. I'll tell you that much. That made me crazy. They were like, he can come a little closer. And then, oh my God. Anyway. But yeah, so let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think they made it as a couple?
No, there's no way they're going to make it. I think it's trying to say like, look, we can look past all of this and we can go forward. But I think really this is kind of an anti-American film. Like this poor British guy got put through the fucking ringer because he just rushed through things. And then listening to the birds chirping and everything. In the end, you kind of do feel bad for both of them, right? Like you did feel, and that's the power of this style of editing, the quick edits and the music. You felt like these people really do love each other. You do get a connection and they are really good together to the point that you do feel like they are in a real relationship. And there's real feelings there. So, I mean, in the end, I think they're going to attempt it, but I don't know if they will. This world is just too rough, especially for everything that they've gone through and their best friends and everyone witnesses a shit show of a wedding. All the cards are stacked against them in reality. And that is, I mean, people in that situation really is, a black and a female and a white British man in America. The cards are stacked against them socially, unfortunately. And I think that this does kind of talk a lot about that.
You know what? I'm going to say this. Honestly, I think they do make it.
You do,
and the reason
they'd have to leave and go to England. They have to get the fuck out of America.
Listen. I don't know if they leave or not, but I think they make it as a couple. And the reason why is because in that wedding sequence, Pattinson, he lets it all hang out. Right?
That's true.
Because at that point, people are looking at him like, how could you marry this psychopath? And he says he doesn't care, that he loves her. He goes back to the apartment and then he hears the song that she plays to get goofy with. And then he goes back to the diner. He still has that strong connection. And I think they make it. I think they make it as a couple.
Yeah. I read some things on Reddit about how it all shows how the American culture poisons the Europeans and the British people and sucks you in and you can't get away from it. And that was one point of view.
I mean, listen, the fact of the matter is yes, he is a foreigner, and this is sort of,
very
it's
American concept
as kind of American stuff, especially the gun violence, but it's a very provocative commentary,
It is.
And listen, first of all, we are about to adjourn this because one, I'm not about to ask you the worst thing that you've done. And then two, I'm also not about to ask you what you would have done in this scenario because I think that would take another fucking hour, quite honestly. But, anyway, hard watch. I mean, this is, it's great. I cannot wait to see more from Borgli. I really can't.
Yeah. I enjoyed this a lot. I'm excited to see what else we have.
He's good.
So next week, there's not much. Yumi
Faces
and
of
Tuscany and Faces of Death, I guess.
I saw the trailer for Yumi and Tuscany, and let me just tell you something. I was like, I turned to Scott and I go, didn't we see this already? Like, it's everything. It's Under the Tuscan Sun. There was this stupid Netflix film about like this, well, I forget what it was called, but she goes, Scott Foley is in it. She goes to Italy and then she redoes this house or whatever. And there's all this mishigas about like she's supposed to marry somebody, but then it doesn't happen. Anyway, that whole movie looks like a goddamn mess. But Scott's like, "Can we see it? That guy's so hot." I'm like, "No, we're not gonna fucking see that movie."
I don't know. That movie looks like trash. Yeah, it's Faces of Death, that or something called Beast with another Crow exploitation movie, Russell Crowe and.
Oh, is that
action
the boxer
MMA
thing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that looks great with Daniel McPherson. Yeah. Actually, it does look. Oh my God, Russell Crowe wrote it. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, we'll get something. So at any rate, folks, we do our pod roll in the spoiler free. So this adjourns our movie breakdown of the drama. Again, if you love us, like, subscribe, spread the word about us. I don't know, somehow figure out how to spank the algorithm and have us shared. I don't know. We'll figure it out somehow. But yes, at any rate, Mike, parting thoughts?
Thanks for joining us. We will be back with another review, like we said, either Faces of Death or Beast next week.
And as always, folks, be kind, be open, be vulnerable. That's where the art is. And we will see you next week. Love you guys. See you next week.